Welcome back. You're watching the CNBC TV 18 special. We're in conversation with DIPP Secretary Amitabh Kant and EY head Rajiv Memani. Let me talk to you, Rajiv Memani, about what the next big trigger could really be as far as FDI inflows are concerned. Could that be the union budget? Because that's where the finance minister will spell out the roadmap on how he intends to come down to a corporate tax rate of 25%. The next budget will, in the sense, be the first cut as far as which of the exemptions that are going to be done away with and so on and so forth. And we may, in fact, see the government move to put the ghost of the retrospective tax law to rest. Perhaps if the government decides to be as bold as that, there's all kinds of suggestions that maybe the AP Shah panel will be appointed to look at what to do with the retrospective tax issue as well. Could the next budget provide the next big leg up or next big trigger as far as FDI flows go?
No, I think my personal view is that it should be much before that. I think, getting some of the large contracts. So, for example, there are a couple of large contracts that can be issued by the railways where the bidding has happened, and for the railway, for the diesel loco, electric loco, how do we progress on smart cities, how are we progressing on digital India, some large contracts being issued there. I think people are convinced that India is an exciting story. Now the main thing is demand large contracts that are issued, basis which people set up manufacturing capacity in India. I think that's number one. Number two, what happens on GST I think is very, very critical, which I don't think is budget dependent per se. So I think that could be a very important second trigger, and I think that will be very critical to see how things go. On the budget, I would say dispute resolution processes can be enhanced and speeded even before budget, whether it's advanced ruling authorities, whether it's dealing with old disputes or APAs and everything else, which I think in some of these areas good progress is making. I think the key thing in my view to watch out for in the next budget are two. One is reduction in corporate tax rates and how aggressive we are on that. And the second issue is there are how do we deal with the entire area of incentives and issues around MAT, DDT, and how competitive we can get on corporate tax rates.
Mr. Kant, let me ask you now about what we can expect from a policy point of view when we talk about the road ahead. You have liberalized a whole bunch of sectors, but there continue to be some sectors that could perhaps do with a little more liberalization. Are we likely to see any moves on sectors where you haven't hiked the FDI cap already? Sectors like media, for instance. Is that likely to be on the anvil? I know the DIPP was also perhaps pushing for the proposal of allowing 100% FDI as far as private banking is concerned. I know that the Reserve Bank has issues with that, but where could we perhaps see further liberalization?
But the key thing is, to my mind, the important thing is really that the country needs to move forward on implementation. And the key is what Rajiv talked about, rolling out large projects, focus on just implementation. But I think on the policy side, there's several things still need to be done. I think we need to keep opening up our FDI policy much, much more in terms of making it simpler, making it easier, doing away with a number of conditionalities that we've brought into these policies. Just make it very, very simple and easy for people to come on. And similarly, I think we need to bring in a bankruptcy law. We must allow people to easy entry, easy exit, simply because India is seeing a huge energy and vibrancy in terms of the startup movement. We must allow failures to take place. And I think bankruptcy law is really the need of the hour. Easy entry, easy exit. And I think thirdly, to my mind, corporate taxes over a period must come radically down. The main reason why startups are moving from here to Singapore in some cases is because you have a 30% corporate tax here, you have 15% in other places, and it's far easier.
That's not the only reason that they're moving, Mr. Kant, and I've had this conversation with you in the past. The reason is because there's ambiguity when it comes to the FDI law.
So easy listing, FDI laws, some of those things are getting addressed, and you'll see a lot of action on this in the days to come. We'll make compliance very, very.
Specifically on e-commerce, sir, because that is an area where big ticket FDI is coming in. You were talking about startups. Your government has a Startup India mission. When are we going to close the ambiguity when it comes to FDI and e-commerce, forcing Indian startups, first generation entrepreneurs to re-domicile outside of India?
So e-commerce, Shereen, India's allowed 100% FDI in B2B. Let's be clear on that. all Flipkarts, Snapdeals of the world have happened in India on account of a B2B. China is still B2B. Let me assure you that there are huge, opening up B2C has its downsides as well in terms of large-scale imports, etc. So those issues are being examined. In fact, India, to my mind, is the only country which has a separate policy for single brand, multi-brand, retail, e-commerce. I think we need to put it all together. And a lot of work is going on. We are consulting the states because a lot of these issues fall within the domain of the states. Their inputs are just awaited, and I think we'll come out with a very, very clear policy on this.
Okay, Rajiv Memani, let me give you the final word here, since this is a report that EY has put together. In terms of red flags, for all of this to actually translate into reality, yes, we've had a very good H1 for 2015. Mr. Kant hopes that we will hit historic or record highs on the FDI front. He says doubling this number is not out of the realm of possibility. What would be the red flags that you would watch out for and that you would like the government to address?
Yeah, as I mentioned, Shereen, earlier, I think the main thing is, ease, just the regulatory ease, because the government has raised the expectations. People are anticipating much greater ease. So, whilst we may not open other sectors, but today also, maybe the FIPB approval takes the same amount of time as it took earlier. In some cases, even more. So how can that process be expedited? In some of the cases, it's very, very convoluted. So it's very difficult to understand what is allowed, what is not allowed. So just simplicity in some of that. The second is, industry by industry, we have to see what are the issues in integrating with supply chain, on promoting manufacturing in India. There are some tax structures, there are some inverted duty structures, there are some state tax issues. So one has to go now into the next level of detail, because now companies are excited. They are looking to manufacture in India. They don't just want to import. And once they come down to that next level, they're getting a lot of support from states. There is a competition that's going on among states. But I think as they look at that next level of detail, we need to ensure that those things are ironed out.
A final word to you, Mr. Kant. Just on one point that Rajiv Memani spoke about, and that is the FIPB approval process. This has been something that's been going back and forth for so long. How do we make it faster? Is there hope, sir?
My personal view is that already 92% of the total FDI coming into the country comes through the automatic route. So to say that FIBB is impacting investment is totally a wrong view. Just 8% of the investment coming into this country comes through the FIPB route. These are some of these issues which come through the FIPB route are basically complex cases of security, and therefore they need a clearance, and that's why it takes a little time. But rest assured that our objective is to make 95 to 96% of the FDI coming into the country come through the automatic route. We are going to suggest several other changes which will ensure that FDI comes in very smoothly just in a single day through the automatic route. FIPB will just deal with major security-related cases.
All right. Amitabh, Kant, Rajiv Memani, it's been a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you very much for joining us here on CNBC TV 18 and taking us through the report that EY has put together, which highlights that India today is the most attractive FDI destination, and what more can be done to ensure that the promises or the commitments that are being made are actually translated into reality. Gentlemen, thanks very much for your time. With that, it's time for us to wrap up the CNBC TV 18 special. From all of us here, goodbye. Many thanks for watching.